Hey, welcome to the next Lick of the Week video, and we're dealing with vamp patterns, and we have been for the last two videos. So we're exploring the rhythmic side of backup banjo. And up until now we've played some pretty basic ideas, although in the previous video we got a little more, little fancier, I guess you might say, with some double time vamp patterns and adding a little juke, a little syncopation in there, which is kind of cool. Now I want to add a single string idea. Here's what the basic vamp pattern is going to sound like. Thumb, pinch, pinch, first string, and then the single string notes are going to be the third string for G here from 3 to 4. And then back to the fourth string. So it's 4, pinch, pinch, 1, 3, 3, 4, and then the pattern repeats over and over as many times as you need it to fill specific measures. And this can be reproduced in any number 1 or F-shaped chord position. So what I want to do is play this with the metronome and get it in time, and then see if we can switch from G to C to maybe D as we do in the context of a real tune. Now I've got my metronome going at about 75 beats a minute. This may be pretty hard at that pace, but guess what? The nice thing about a metronome is we can slow it down. Let's slow it down to about 60 beats a minute or so. Much easier to play there. And like I've said before, most of these more advanced vamp ideas work better at slower to mid tempos anyway, so you don't have to worry about getting this particular vamp pattern very fast. Now let's, again, I said we were going to move it around. Let me play G again, then move to C and D. You may have noticed that when I was leaving one chord location to go, say, from G to C, I eliminated the last note of the series. I just played the third string twice and eliminated the fourth string. What that is leaving a rest in the pattern so that you have time to get to the next location. That's something pretty handy to realize, that you don't have to fill every measure totally with notes. You can leave rests in there, so that helps you move from one position to the next. So I can play this pattern, mix it with regular vamps, cross vamps, double time, that's just another idea to add to your arsenal. Here's another idea that actually comes from jazz guitar, but it's been in bluegrass banjo since Earl thought up most of these ideas back in the 40s and 50s. And the idea is called, commonly in bluegrass, is a bass walk-up. It sounds something like this. What I'm doing here is walking from a G chord into a C position using the same chord formation. So again, this is pretty easy if you think, well, I don't have to change chord formations very much. The real trick of doing bass walk-ups is to actually be able to fit the timing in. Now, what exactly is this that we're doing? It really comes from jazz guitar, and in jazz guitar they call this playing octaves. Two notes on two different strings that are the same note an octave apart. Wow, that's a big mouthful. If you think about it, both your fourth and your first string are tuned to D normally, right? But those two D notes are an octave apart. Okay, anywhere I fret those two strings, as long as those two fretted notes are on the same fret, guess what? They're the same two notes, always an octave apart. So I have a G note over here on the fourth string and a one octave higher G note on the first string. So I can play multiple tones. I can play two notes and each of those two tones are an octave apart, always, as long as I fret them on the same fret. Well, that works pretty well for this number 1 chord formation because these two fingers are always on the same fret in this formation. So it makes it a convenient place to do a walk-up. But how am I going to figure out how to play a walk-up in my vamp pattern? Well, here's the rule. You only have a certain number of measures to play the ideas you're trying to play. So if I have 1 measure of G, that's 4 beats in common time, that means I can stop at any time, stop playing vamps, and include other ideas, but I have to know how long those other ideas last so that I can subtract that amount of time for the vamps. So in order to do this bass string walk-up, you have to stop vamping the same number of beats that it takes you to do the walk-up, if that makes sense. So it's like subtracting the value of the notes you're playing from the vamp pattern. So let me see if I can figure this out. We want to try to do 1 measure of G and get to C and still be in time. 4 beats here, 4 beats at C. So let me try this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 4 and. That would equal and 4 and 1 1/2 beats. Okay, that means that I must subtract 1 1/2 beats from the G measure, which means I have to only vamp. That would be 2 1/2 beats, right? 2 1/2, 3 1/2, 4. Right. So I have 2 1/2 beats of vamps I can play, and then the other 1 1/2 beats left over in that measure can be occupied by this. And what most bluegrass players do is a little quick 8th note, couple of notes. So I'll play the 1st string and the 4th string as 8th notes, right with a click, and then play walk-ups the rest of the time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Right? So I'm actually using kind of a little 2-finger pattern, I guess. 1 4. But it helps you get in time with this rhythmic pattern. So let me vamp here and then see if I can walk from G to C. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now I'm in C. 1 and 2 and 3. Now what if I wanted to get from C back to G? Well, I already know that that walk-up lasts 1.5 beats. Well, it's going to last the same amount of time going back the other direction, right? So I can reverse direction. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. What if I wanted to go from C to D? A little harder, but there's only 3 frets difference between those two positions. Maybe I can come up with a chromatic walk-up, which means a half step each time, and get from C to D. Let me try that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. I had to go 1 4 and then pinch those 2 notes and then walk up. So I had to play around with the timing to make it work. But hey, that's what's so neat about playing backup, is you have to kind of think on your feet. So let me try a vamp pattern using the new idea, and then I'll do a bass walk-up. Alright, let's check that with a metronome. Set it about 70, 75 beats a minute, somewhere in there. And as the video trails off, I'm just going to play some of these ideas from the previous video mixed in with these 2 new ideas. And that'll give you another layer of complexity and excitement to your vamp patterns. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next video.